This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
For a limited time at McDonald's, get a Big Mac extra value meal for $8. That means 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, and medium fries, and a drink. We may need to change that jingle.
Prices and participation may vary.
You're listening to United Rugby Rewind. Hello and welcome to this week's United Rugby Rewind. Bit of a changed setup this week. I'll tell you all about the story of why we're recording on a Tuesday night with three of us in a mo. But joining me tonight is Hugh and Caelan. Good evening, gents.
Good evening.
Hello.
Yeah,
I don't want to be here. It's always a pleasure, but I do not want to be here tonight. But it's always a pleasure to join you.
Caelan's going, I should have recorded on Sunday, shouldn't I? I should have just bitten the bullet and recorded on Sunday.
Yep.
So to tell you how difficult it is to organise a podcast with four people, right? So normally on a Sunday night, that's when we record, Sunday night. Lovely, jubbly. So this Sunday was my boy's birthday. He's away in university. We were going to spend the day up there. So I said to Hugh before that, I said, right, Hugh, can you sit in for me on Sunday night? Hugh said, yeah, no problem at all. So Caelan, you went, I'm working on Sunday night, bank holiday on Monday. So yeah, I can't do it. Right. So then we told the other guys, okay, it'll be Hugh and then Alan and Ben. And then I think it was Ben said, I can't do something. So, right, okay, it's just going to be Alan and Hugh. We went, okay, let's shift it to Tuesday night. Move it to Tuesday night when my chest is still bloody all over the place. So I thought I was dying at one point last night on the rap podcast. And then we get to 4 o'clock and Alan's stuck in Derby that he can't pronounce, and he doesn't understand why it's pronounced Derby when there's.
How long has he lived in the UK now? Hasn't figured out the whole Derby thing.
You can't blame him. You know, when you go through Derby and then Worcester and Gloucester, it would just blow your mind. You know, you wait till he gets to Lee Delamere, he'd be just okay, gone. And then about an hour before we were about to record, Ben went, oh yeah, I'm going to take the kids to the grannies because it's half term, so I can't make it as well. So then Hugh jumped up, and then it's just been a bloody nightmare putting this one together this week, gents. But
this has been a quiet week, as they all say.
yeah. It's that whole thing with swans. We're doing all the work underneath, except we're crazy swans going, oh, come on, what the fuck is this? Right. So let's get into some rugby stuff, and let's start with the obvious bit from today then, Caelan, because I can imagine today's been a bit of a crazy day for Munster fans.
Been a crazy day for Munster fans. Been a crazy day for a lad who covers Munster and is dying to find out any bit of information that can lead him in a certain direction for podcasts like this, or for Red Army podcast or my own podcast. And yes, I understand I have 3, but anyways, it's just
Only
one
3?
of those days.
Rookie.
Only 3. Yeah, I know it's not Huws numbers. Let's get that set aside. But no, it's been a crazy day. It's been a weird day. I left to go to college this morning, and it's such a basic way of putting it, but I left to go to college this morning. Graham Rowntree was head coach. Before I got there, he was not. It's literally that simple. Found out about less than 5 minutes before the rest of the world did. Couldn't believe it then, still don't believe it now. It's weird. And we did if there's any Munster fans listening, I know I'm the Caelan to a lot of non-Munster fans, but if there are Munster fans listening, we discussed it on the Red Army pod, and we did discuss, it's weird. because this rebuild was Graham Rowntree, and the first thing Graham Rowntree did was he got Mike Prendergast in the door, and then he went and he got Dennis Leamy in the door. He got the best men for the job to put around him. Year one started slow, got some confidence, and we all know what happened in Cape Town. An unbelievable victory to end that season with the trophy after 12 years. And obviously for a club like Munster, trophies are the pinnacle. Look, we'll talk about finances more across the season, and we have discussed it, but like Munster are not a poor club. They're still one of the top 5 richest clubs in the league, give or take, and given the discrepancy, that's not nothing. Top 4, top 5, depending on who you ask. I've asked a few people about this. And look, that was needed. The club needed a trophy. After 12 years, they got it. Last year, it felt almost too perfect, like they were going to walk into the sunset with another one, or walk off into the sunset in Simon Zebo's case with another trophy, and obviously fell short, but never a sense of panic, never a sense that things weren't going right. This season started slow. The Zebra game is the game that could be used as like the signpost. That's what the history books will mention, but it's not about the Zebra game. It's not about the Leinster game. Munster have just played their 3 toughest games of the season. I remember saying on I'm all over the place with days, no more than the rest of us. I remember saying on Saturday night or Sunday, like, we've played our 3 toughest away games. We've got a lot of favorable home games. Like 7 home games left or something like that. All very favorable. Probably a more favorable European group than last year, based on how the teams are unfolding. And I'm still pretty confident. I said, look, top 4 might be out of the realms. Like, it might be. Got 1 point from our last 3 games. It might be out of possibility. Top 6, granted. Like, I'll say it now. I think Munster make top 6. But then this news comes, and it's a gut punch, I feel like. Because, again, to go in about Munster and what Munster means and all that, Graham Rowntree got Munster from a cultural point of view. Leicester is a very similar club to Munster, and I think that helped him to relate it back. His experience playing there, like they were the original school of hard knocks in European rugby. I think Munster are probably second to them, just right after their era. So and anyone who has dealt with Graham Rowntree, I've been very fortunate that what I do with podcasts and everything has allowed me to do so. But anyone who's dealt with them has great time from official media to people like me to people in the building. We don't know what led to the parting of ways, however mutual or otherwise. What we do know is that Graham Rowntree is no longer Munster head coach. It is Ian Costello. It is Ian Costello's team. I would wager until the end of the season. I'd be very surprised if Munster gets someone in before the end of the season. At this rate, because that's just tough. Like we all know that. So it's it's a very strange feeling this afternoon and this morning and this evening, and whatever time people are listening to this that my feeling will not have changed. It is very strange. Munster play New Zealand XV on Saturday evening in Thomond Park. It's going to be sold out. And look, you thought it was going to be Graham Rowntree's men against, I actually don't know who's over New Zealand, but that's what we were thinking. That's how you would have expected it to be. I actually wrote a preview piece for my own site just to get done because I'm busy at the end of the week. And literally the last line was Graham Rowntree's men need a result. And that's not the case. And it's weird because, like, how do you get, it's like that old, sociological question we all ask ourselves whenever a team loses, like, how are we so invested in this? But we just are, like, and it's such a weird thing to say, but we are just so invested in this. And from a human element, like, Munster fans got Graham Rowntree and Graham Rowntree got Munster. And that's the bit that just feels weird. Like, different to Razzie, different to Johan, different to, Rob Penny, different to Tony McGahan. Graham Rowntree gets Munster, and I wish him nothing but the best. Like, if he goes to England, if he goes to Leicester, I know Michael Check is doing well there, wherever it may be, I wish him nothing but the best. And, like, I have no hard feelings. likewise with Johan van Gaal when he left, I had no bad feelings towards Johan. I've none towards Graham, and a lot of fans will agree on that. But it is certainly 6 rounds into the URC season. It's not the news you would have expected. And to be honest, when I seen that there was big news coming this morning, I kind of thought it was going to be the injury joker that we were looking for, but we somehow pulled something out of the bag, and it was something massive. Like, selfishly, I was hoping it was Oxenche, because Oxenche is the best loose in the world. But it's not Oxenche. It's a different loose head prop news, and it's heartbreaking. But look, I think to kind of wrap it up, nothing says more about the impact that Graham Rowntree has made than the reaction from in Munster and outside of Munster as well. You know, the reaction in South Africa, across Ireland, you know, even from the likes of yourselves, from people who follow the URC across the UK, has been unbelievable. I think everyone knows what kind of person he is and what kind of coach he is. And look, Munster are a big club as well. That's a factor. Like, I understand that. But yeah, it's a strange one. I probably haven't really said a lot there, but like it's hard to put it into words. It's not what we expected to hear last night. And would I prefer if we recorded this on Sunday? Maybe, but I was at work. I actually was working, so maybe not. But just thank you, Graham Rowntree. What more can I say? Like, he delivered a trophy when no one expected it, and it's one of the greatest. The semi-final and final in 2023 were the best 2 days I've ever had supporting this team, and possibly will be the best 2 days I'll ever have supporting the team. And that's on Graham Rowntree and his coaches and his players, and I thank them.
See, it's weird because we have the same kind of connection as Scarlet supporters. You know, we have strange connections to other coaches from the distant past that have gone on and to not maybe set the world alight at national level, but you do, don't you? As a fan, you hold on to those few moments where just everything is going your way, and the person that you look towards, the person that you focus on, you know, there are 15 guys on the pitch at the best of the times. You can't really identify who's who unless you look really hard. Whereas the coach is the coach. You know, he's the head guy. He's the one you go to. So when you look at the best of times, you remember the coach. You might remember a couple of plays from that game, but you remember the feeling. You remember the emotion. You remember the fans around you, the feeling, how long you stayed in the stadium after the game, and all of those kind of things. But, yeah, but it's memories, isn't it? It's weird stuff. So Hugh, let me ask you this. So obviously there are other coaches in the URC who are under much more pressure, and we've kind of been expecting, you know, do we get an announcement that this is going to be their last season? Same as we did with Toby Booth. We weren't expecting Toby Booth to announce this is his last season, you know. So we were expecting maybe a couple of other coaches to go, okay, we've agreed to part ways at the end of the season. So as a neutral, Hugh, what do you make of today?
Yeah, big surprise when the news popped up. It was one of those where you thought, is this a joke? Is this a parody account or something? And you check it twice. Like Helen said, I'm not sure what's behind it, because it's not results. Yes, the results haven't been great, 2 from 6, but this is what I'm these days calling the Munster cycle of you don't really turn up until after the Six Nations. And if you look at Rowntree's record with Munster, I worked out that in the first half of seasons, he's only done part of the first half of this season. So out of the games that he's played in the first half of the season, he's won 10 from 24, which is less than half, obviously. And then in the second half of seasons, he's won 16 from 18. That's just regular games, by the way. That's not including playoffs. So I don't think it's results related. So, you know, in Graham Rowntree's statement, he referred to the right time for his family, making a change like that. I'll be shocked if it's happened overnight. And, you know, there is a natural break in the season now where it's a few weeks until Munster's next big game. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a conversation that's been ongoing for a little bit. I did get a downbeat vibe from Graham Rowntree in the post-match press conference. I don't know if I don't watch a ton of his interviews, so I don't know whether he's generally like that after defeats anyway, but he seemed properly gutted in those interviews. And yeah, it's come out obviously the Tuesday after the game. That, like I said, I'd be surprised if it's a spur of the moment decision. It's one of those, very rarely when someone says, "Oh, by mutual consent," that it's actually mutual consent. I, I can believe that this is mutual consent, and in a funny way, I can kind of believe it being more on Roundtree's side deciding to move on, given the time at which it's happened. A bit like on Toby Booth's departure, it seems more like a Toby Booth decision. So I'm sure it will come out in the wash eventually. There's all sorts of rumors going around about the power that he wanted to have and he wasn't afforded to have. It's funny. From a Welsh point of view, all the statement says the IRFU have decided to part ways with Graham Rowntree because our club system doesn't work like that. So it's just, yeah, I don't want to sit here and guess and speculate in things, but surprised is I think everybody, as Caelan said, everybody outside of Munster was as surprised as everybody inside of Munster. There was no warning whatsoever.
So it is what it is. Decision made. So in a magic wand kind of world, who do you bring in? Let's accept that you're temporary coach until the end of the season, and whatever happens, happens. But who would you like to bring in for next season?
It's a good question because I've only listened to, I wouldn't even call it 1.5 podcasts, like basically 3/4 of 2 podcasts at this stage. I've just been busy with other things, but Bernard Jackman, the esteemed pundit who kind of knows a bit of everything when it comes to the game, I think he hit it very well where he said, ultimately, because important to note this before I move on, the IRFU pay the wages of every head coach in the country. So the 4 provincial teams, obviously the national teams, so important to note. And he said he thinks the IRFU should be moving to get the best possible man, not who's available, not who's kind of okay, might be a good fit. No, he wants to see. Now, obviously, we'll never see the shortlist, like that's naturally, but he basically said, I want to see Rog, I want to see Felix Jones. He mentioned Johan Ackerman because he's a great time for Johan Ackerman. I don't have an opinion on Johan Ackerman, but maybe if he ends up as Munster coach, I will. He mentioned the guys like that. That's who they should be looking for, the best in the business, the best possible names. And I firmly agree. Now, yes, I understand there's that Irish thing where it's like, well, obviously you have a lot of money, you got this advantage and this advantage. Yes, we do. I understand that. But I do agree. I think a club like Munster should be looking for the best possible name. I think Ian Costello would do a good job, but Ian Costello's role as director of rugby operations is, in some ways, it's like a director of rugby. From what's been said to me, I kind of feel like it's similar to a director of rugby, but he's done so much good work with Pathways Academy, helping academy players jump up to senior level and things like that, that I think that's the perfect role for him. And I actually would prefer if he stayed in that role. I think there's a case to be made if any of the unit coaches are going to step up, that it would be Dennis Leamy. The reason I say that is from an emotional standpoint and the fact that I know they're Munster man himself and Mike Prendergast, but from an emotional standpoint and a leadership standpoint, he is one that would tick that box. But as well as that, if you were to say to me for Munster to bring in someone underneath, maybe that's where Felix Jones comes in as defence coach, or that's where, for example, because someone said this name to me, even though I know he's not available at the moment, Dewald Senecal came in as a forwards coach or things like that. That's, the kind of thinking. I think Munster would go for a head coach. I don't think they'll promote up again for the second time in a row. And especially after, well, like Razzie was promoted up obviously in different circumstances, but he was director of rugby. It made sense. Johan van Graan wasn't in the building, but it was kind of a similar fit. This was the guy that Razzie really liked as a coach and said, I'm going to get this guy in for ye. So that almost felt internally, even though it wasn't, it almost felt like it was. So you've kind of got to a stage now where multiple Munster head coaches have been promoted from within. Again, Johan wasn't, but it kind of felt like it was. So I actually would nearly prefer if they went and got someone from the outside. Leon MacDonald is in the open market at the moment. Jason Holland's doing good work down in New Zealand. He's a former Munster player, so he's another, would get the club. Every time a job comes available in Ireland, we always hear of like Mark McCall and Pat Lam and people like that. McCall maybe, but I think I would have reservations about McCall, not from a personal level or anything like that, but just in terms of what his strengths are versus what Munster would need. He's very good at building up, like starting at the bottom and building up. That would for me, that's kind of stepping on Ian Costello's toes, and it would be a risk. And I want to eliminate risk here. I don't know of any seasoned head coaches. There would be something quite funny about a Joe Schmidt or a Michael Cheika or a Stuart Lancaster coming in and going to Munster, and not just for the Leinster angle, but for even Munster fans who would have to eat their words as well, just as much as when it's the other way around and it happens as well. Like some Leinster fans had to do for Nienaber coming in. I don't know is the answer. I hope it's going to be a head coach with experience who can go in there and build someone whose name will bring in excitement as well, because I think there's going to be a void in terms of that excitement with Graham Rowntree leaving. No disrespect to Ian Costello, Mike Prendergast, Dennis Leamy, or Andy Kiriakou, but Graham Rowntree has a presence. He has that presence about him that coaches of big teams should have, like Rog, for example. Like Rog has that around La Rochelle. So I hope it is someone that you can look at and, that can really send shockwaves. Leinster got that shockwave signing when they brought in Jacques Nienaber. Why can't Munster? It's the same people paying the wages. That's the way that Munster fans should look at it, And like Ulster, I think they've landed on their feet with Richie Murphy. I think he's a great coach for there. But I would have said the same thing as well. Like, go for the best possible man. So we'll wait and see.
It's from an appointment point of view, though, it's interesting from the other side of what coaches would want to go there, because the Irish system is so aligned and it's so ducks in a row. I think it's
constrained.
As a rugby nation, no union and the teams are in such a straight line as in Ireland. All of the teams play a variation of the same game plan. If I could list the characteristics that Munster play, and Ulster and Connacht and Leinster all play those same characteristics. Even like the women's sevens team plays a similar philosophy. It's that aligned and very organized. So from a coach coming in point of view, and things like signings, things on like the limitations on non-Irish qualified players and things, you're not going to have absolute power in that job. You're going to come in and there is going to be certain things that you don't have the power to change. So that's a personality of a coach has got to come in and accept that, which is why maybe someone who is less of a like not Michael Cheika. I know Michael Cheika did work with Leinster and things, but it's not so much of a strong personality, a strong like lone wolf personality. Someone who maybe has worked under somewhere else before, or the other side to that is someone who has ambitions with the Irish national team and sees the role as working for Munster as a stepping stone to working for the Irish national team, whether that be Ronan O'Gara, whether that be Felix Jones. I don't know whether there are coaches within the Irish setup itself who are maybe looking for a drop down to go up. I don't know, but it is an interesting pitch, and I can imagine there would be some coaches around the world who wouldn't want it. But what I would say is, like Caelan said, don't rush it, because throughout the course of this season there will be some coach who's not available currently who will become available in France. Like Stuart Lancaster might not see another season at Racing 92, and he's already worked with Leinster and worked in the system. The only caveat to that is that his son Dan Lancaster will be starting at 12 for Munster next season. Just don't ask too many questions about that, and it will all be fine.
That's the best laugh I've had all day. I do agree. On that, I'm not going to try and piss people off. if there's two names that come to mind in terms of availability, I would take Toby Booth. I would take Toby Booth, to be honest, if he's willing to balance his philosophy with the philosophies of the coaches already in the room, because I think he's a similar personality. He will be adored.
Hmm?
I lied. I'm not saying this for clicks. I would take Razzie back. I absolutely would. It would be incredible.
And I would take £1 million.
This one, yeah. But I think with Razzie as well, like if there and I don't know if I can say this on a podcast, but I'm just gonna say it anyway. Like if there was one man who was gonna walk up to David Newsfor's door and say, "Fuck you, I'm doing it anyway," it's Razzie. Like, do you know what I mean? So if there's ever a man that could kind of break down the Irish system, it's someone like him. Because I think that's the thing. If you're based in France, for example, and you think of someone like Raj, like you've got this wealth, you've got a salary cap, yes, but like you're well able to play within the salary cap. You go to Ireland and it's very wishy-washy rules. Like there's no hard and fast rules. There's nothing written down. It's the big thing we say here in Ireland. There's nothing written down because it's, well, we don't want to get caught and have to change it and then publicly change it. It's like, no, sure, we'll see. And I think that would, I don't know the story with coaches in France, but if you took Roger as an example, as someone who's been in France for a few years, I think they'd find it very, very difficult because you were playing second fiddle to the national team. You're not your number one entity everywhere you look.
What I will say is if there's one French team in the top 14 that plays like an Irish team, it's La Rochelle.
Yeah. I take Greg Aldry as well if we're going like, do you know what I mean? Like fuck it, Razzie,
take Anton Frisch back
Rog.
While you're here.
Yeah, I mean Tom Farrell's been really good. You know this. You're a statistical mind. He's been really really good for Munster. Who else? Seeing as bring Doug Howlett back. Fuck it, like we're getting the band back together at this stage. Doug Howlett's playing the wing. But yeah, no, it'll be a fun one to follow over the rest of the season, I feel like, because Munster is a melodrama at the best of times and literally the quietest week of the year. Like, here we go.
So I thought at this point we could play a little game. Okay. So me and Hugh are going to say names of people.
I like this game.
Yeah. That
I've had no prep on this.
No, you've had no prep on this. It just came to me as you were saying. And so we're gonna reel off names of coaches that might come and coach for Munster, and we have to try and get you to say fuck off. Okay, so I'm gonna start with ex-Scarlets and Wales backs coach Stephen Jones.
No.
Does that no? Okay.
I'm not quite fuck off territory because I don't know enough about him. But like, and former Scarlets coaches have done well in Ireland. Look at Simon Easterby.
It's because if Stephen Jones turned up, they'll all have to admit that he was better than Rog the entire time, and they don't want to face that truth.
Fuck off. I'll let you keep going though for the sake of the game.
Go on then, Hugh. You pick a name. Throw a name.
I'm trying to remember. Eddie Jones will probably be looking for a job before too long.
Oh, I've got to cross him off my list now. Yeah.
I'm not gonna go F off territory because again, the content, you will get so much out of him. But no, I think he's past it as a coach. I think he's in the Mourinho bracket, but still Mourinho still comes up with a fair few nuggets, doesn't he?
Mm.
By the way, for all the Munster fans thinking of coming for me about the Stephen Jones thing, come for me. I will not back down on this. I fully believe what I said.
Open the box. My next one would be Brad Moore. So he coaches Scarlets for a little while. Then he went off to New Zealand to do. I think he was a tack coach.
Yeah, he was one of the ones thrown under the bus for the loss to Ireland in the series. Actually,
I think he's a good coach, but I don't know.
You'll like him. He's very likable, and he'll very much bend to the culture of the place that he goes to. A lot of Scarlets fans still have really, really positive feelings towards him.
I'd say yes, so I'll go yes on that one. You've talked me into that one.
Oh, okay, so he's a yes. Any more from you, Hugh?
Simon Easterby.
Yeah. I'm an Easterby fan. I won't lie. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen because he's going to be Ireland head coach up until after the summer tour.
But he's going to, for his career progression, he's going to need somewhere to go in a minute.
He might, but he could be also seen as next man to replace Andy Farrell when Andy Farrell eventually goes. So, I don't know.
So-
I do like Simon Easterby. Like on a human level above anything else. I loved him as a player. I like him as a coach. So definitely wouldn't be in the F off category. Like we're
Can,
this is too
Oh,
tame, really. Go on.
can I
okay.
interest you in a Warren Gatland?
Fuck off. There we go.
You win. I had a guaranteed winner. My guaranteed winner was going to be Johnny Sexton. That's the
Oh, damn it. Yeah, that's a polite fuck off on that one. Thank God we don't do bleeping out swear words on this because it would have been people are gonna be very confused. No, Johnny
Yeah.
Sexton and Warren Gatland were both great in their time, but that's a while ago.
Right, let's actually move on to round 6 of the URC games that actually got played last week. So we may as well start with you, Caelan, anyway, because you had the game of the week, which is Leinster Lions. So what did you make of it? For me, I thought it was a classic top of the table clash. There wasn't really that much between the teams. It wasn't wild, free flowing or any of that kind of stuff. It was a hard, intense battle. But I think the best side probably came out on top.
Yeah. Look, I think again, did Leinster have to do a lot to get their result? No. Were Leinster just more than good enough to get the result? Yes. Like both things can be true. Before that Caelan comments starts typing. The Lions did disappoint me. I won't lie. I know the weather was a factor, but they're after dropping 2 poor performances in a row, both to what their momentum would have said. So that's really disappointing. Leinster for me, look, honestly, it feels like a week ago at this stage, but Leinster were good. They were, I'm not going to use the word confined. They played well enough to get a result, and I feel like if the Lions had put pressure on, Leinster would have played well enough to push on again. It was that kind of a game. They always seem to have the Lions at arm's reach. I know it's disappointing we don't have Alan here today to kind of cross-reference and so on and so forth, but I think it was, I think there's a case to be made. It was Leinster's most impressive performance of the 6, insofar as probably the weakest team that they've put out there. I know they had Caelan Doris, who was man of the match, and he was incredible. But like McGrath, Prendergast, that's an okay half back line, definitely helped by Doris and Henshaw having really good games. James Lowe was really good in the wing, but like their scrum was getting mullered in the first half, for instance, with Mill and Slimani, who I know Hugh likes to talk about fraud watches. We could have a fraud watch signing. But granted, he's 35 years of age. He doesn't have to prove himself to anyone.
Yeah, to be fair, he's played a lot of minutes. Ask Welsh fans about that. Played a 100-minute game once.
Yeah, that's true. God, I remember that game. That
So
was the
do
game
I.
that led to. There's a sliding doors moment between that game and Ireland doing a long warm up. Jamie Easter getting injured in that warm up, and Peter O'Mahony coming into start in that game, and Peter O'Mahony captained the Lions later that summer. It's a real, yeah. Anyways, it was arguably the most impressive performance from Leinster. Now, I didn't see the Connacht game, but I think Connacht are, I think the team that Leinster had out against Connacht, I knew they were going to win that fairly comfortably. So, yeah, impressed by Leinster in this one. Impressed on how they didn't really need Jemison Gibson Park to get themselves going around the field, which has been an issue. Like you'd look at, he's come off after 60 minutes in a couple of games, and they've looked directionless after 60 minutes. Whereas with McGrath and Prendergast, they actually did look all right. So Prendergast did okay. He had some mistakes. He had some nice touches. Absolutely what you'd expect from a 21-year-old out half. But like Caelan Doris was Caelan Doris as well. And that's a massive factor for Leinster, because when we get to the busy end of the season, Leinster's season will be defined by how good Caelan Doris can be in a semi-final or a quarter-final, or Porter or Gibson Park. And that's what we've seen here at the weekend.
I think it's a bit worrying for just how far ahead of everybody else they are.
We said that before, though.
Yeah, it just, I don't know, it just feels...
They seem to be taking it more seriously, though, this season. It feels like we've seen more of the big stars than we normally see from Leinster. It feels like the likes of Doris, Gibson Park, James Lowe, Hugo Keenan are getting a lot more game time than we're used to seeing in the URC. And I think that has probably come from what we spoke about in the season previews of someone's had a tap on the shoulder and gone, "Hey, Leo, not the lion, the one in the coaching box, you best win something," you know. And it's it is an impressive start. To be fair, I'm a bit more upbeat on the Lions' performance. The big thing that will disappoint the Lions is 0 tries scored. And their 22 conversion, 422 entries, 0 points from any of it. They only seemed content scoring points from the halfway line in this game. It reminded me a lot, and I put this in the chat, of Wales versus Ireland Six Nations games when we've gone over to play in Dublin and we've been hanging on for dear life by our fingernails to a superior team. And there is another day where a couple of Leinster's chances in the first half get scored and the scoreline looks quite different. But I think the Lions showed a different side to themselves. We have to remember this is their last game on tour. So traditionally, South African teams are very, very ready to go home by this point. They went from the UK to Italy, then back to Ireland, which is not great way to do it for lots of reasons. So I think they showed a side to themselves of what's going on. I don't really understand what's going on with Nohamba being on the bench, URC player of the season last season, to struggling to get game time. I thought he should have come on earlier than he did. And when you're the Lions, how are you going to beat Leinster? Well, it's not by doing something normal. It's by having a player like Nohamba do something special and one line break. It's very un-Lionsy. It's a completely different side to the Lions that we've seen. But I do think they made Leinster work for it. Maybe not the result, but, when was the last time that Leinster didn't score 4 tries at home?
Yeah.
So it is. I do think that the Lions
Question,
will take
actually.
a lot from that. And I think that the Lions coaches will go, do you know what? We can walk out of here with our heads held high.
Yeah.
Can I throw in a question there for Hugh? I don't know. I'm not asking you to go and, look it up. I feel like the last time would have been Ulster on New Year's Day, but that was played in an absolute monsoon. Like, it was
Probably
a horrible day. And if not that one, probably Munster in an Interpro this time last year. So that's probably where you're that's the standard. And that's why I wasn't impressed with the Lions in terms of, I don't think they fired a shot. But at the same time, we've seen them roll over in Ireland before. And I think they've taken a lot of confidence from beating Connacht last year in the sports ground. And I don't think they fear coming to Ireland anymore. Excuse me. Which is really good to see. But I think that it's kind of a truth is always in the middle kind of thing. They would be disappointed they didn't really fire Anton, but at the same time, they did shut Leinster down a small bit, even if Leinster did kind of focus on playing a little bit of a slower game because they didn't have Gibson Park, and ultimately he is their pace.
Still,
he's their pace
still
maker.
61% of rucks under 3 seconds, which is
it's still
crazy.
Quick, which some of that is how good their pack was. Because as I said, Doris man the match, he was phenomenal.
He's unbelievable. I feel like people don't give Doris enough credit because he's not either a Kiwi or a Safa, and you have to be the best player in the world. You have to be from one of those nations, obviously. But I think Caelan Doris is phenomenal at the moment. I think he's probably a lot of people have been giving Sione Tuipulotu a lot of plaudits lately, but I think Caelan Doris is probably the best player in the URC for me.
Yeah, I think it's one of those. I do agree. But I think it's to get back to the World Player of the Year chat that we had last time you were on, Hugh. I don't see them going with 2 Irish players. Is the only thing. It's never happened before. I don't think it's going to happen now. And if it's between Doris and Gibson Park, I'd probably lean towards Gibson Park. But then do you put 2 scrum halves on the list? And then there's all that with DuPont. Does DuPont get nominated? He actually might, even though he shouldn't. And I hate awards. We're not doing an award season podcast. That's just one thing that's not happening.
See, one of the things I like when Hugh comes onto a pod is you'll just be having a normal conversation about stuff, and then he'll throw in a random fact that you've got no hope in the world of researching or knowing anything about. That 61% of rucks were under 3 seconds, and you just go, a little bit of me is impressed with that knowledge, and a little bit of me is a bit disappointed that you sit there and know this stuff.
Now I know why Hugh said he couldn't make it for another half an hour after we were going to record, because he was just getting every last nugget in so he could praise Leinster and not be the one referred to as that Hugh in the comment sections.
I imagine Huws, like we can see like the back of Huws' room, but I imagine the bit that we can't see is just this wall of stats and random figures and post-it notes and whiteboards with messages on saying 61% of rucks under 3 seconds and shit like that. It's bizarre stuff.
The next wrap of vlog is going to be a Hugh war room, like draft room from NFL, and it's going to be all the facts. And he's literally going to have like some high profile player. I'm not going to say Tubalado because I know you do rate him, but it's going to be like someone like Tubalado. And it's like, is good at this, but we could get the same production out of this random player and then just go from there.
All right, let's quickly move on to what would have been Ben's game, which was Benetton against the Bulls. Now, did anybody see any massive amount of that game, or was it just me? Okay,
As much as I give out about the URC scheduling, having a Friday night off was kind of nice. I won't lie. I wasn't able to watch it, but not worrying about what matches were on was kind of nice. So I'm going to tap out of this one, but I didn't see it.
By all accounts, the only bit that you needed to see was the last 2 minutes.
I mean, I watched it pretty much. I was flicking and dual screening at the time, and then I went back and watched it again, simply because I was getting the text notifications on scores and what have you, and go, well, this could be another loss for the Bulls, or this could be a bit tasty. And then you look on Twitter and you're like, the Bulls fans are really going for the referee, which is usually a good sign.
It's just Bulls fans.
Yeah. So yeah, but I went back and watched the game, and yeah, Benetton were competitive, and in all honesty, they probably should have put that game away before. It shouldn't have been a case of last minute kicks and all that kind of stuff. They should have put that game away long before they gave the Bulls a chance. So I think it shows again the competitive nature of the URC, where you can take a side like Benetton and a side like the Bulls, and they'll go head to head and toe to toe. And I thought it was quite an entertaining game. It wasn't anything spectacular, but it was a good game to watch. I didn't fall asleep during it, which that bit's coming up next. So yeah, again, it was a good game. There isn't anything in that game really that stands out other than stands out in my head other than the result and the fact that it was last minute, and it was, when you get that kind of a finish to the game, the crowd just go nuts one way or the other anyway. So, fair play to Benetton.
I have a question.
Go on in.
And this is for Kaylin, because it's a hot take question.
Oh,
Are Benetton on fraud watch?
Benetton, yeah, small bet.
Because if you look at this, like if I just read out some of the names they had on the pitch, like Federico Ruza, Alessandro Isacor, Michele Lamoureux, Thomas Albanos, for my money, the best fly half in the rugby championship that just went, Brex and Cello, Paolo Adogwu, Rhino Smith, Thomas Gajo on the bench, Seb Negri on the bench, Andy Uren, Thomas Umaga on the bench. It's 0 tries scored. Like at home. The Benetton have won 2 games, Dragons and Sharks. That they should be.
I think
they should be comfortable. If you look at how much of that team's going to play for Italy, I mean, there's an argument to say that Benetton's squad is better than Italy's squad because they've got some Argentinians in there, and Argentina are very, very good at the moment, and some South Africans, by the way.
And Rhino Smith, it should be said.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I've got South Africans WhatsApping me going, "What is Rhino Smith tied to Italy, or is he free, or what?" So yeah, Kaylin, are Benetton on fraud watch?
Yeah, I'm trying to think where I had Benetton in my preseason predictions. I actually cannot remember for the life of me. I think I had them inside the top 8. 6th. There you go. And I would have stood by that at the start of the season. But you should never judge a team on like their first game. But failed to turn over the Scarlets. Obviously, the Scarlets pushed on. They've had a great season. Opening block to the season. We'll get on to that in a minute. But failed to beat the Scarlets. Hammered by Glasgow. hammered by Leinster. And then it was at that point you start to worry. And I think, like we said it, they needed big results. And look, this losing to the Bulls at home isn't like the be all and end all. It's not the worst thing in the world. I get that. But it is like the two teams you've beaten were both bottom three in the league last year. You got trounced by two of the top teams in the league. If I was predicting now, I'd say Glasgow and Benton will be the top two in the league. You got absolutely hockeyed by them. You failed to beat the Scarlets. You just have to beat the Scarlets at home. As good as they've been at the start of the year. So yeah, it's disappointing. And I think there's good reason to be disappointed in Benetton's start. I think there's a chance there's a bit of a staleness starting to kick in there.
I think so.
Because Bortolami's been there since basically since the Rainbow Cup. But then at the same time, like, it's a squad that has evolved. It's a squad that's matured. It's gotten older. Like, there's really no one that you can say, okay, like they've really missed this guy who has left, for instance. Like, we thought it would be that case with Garbisi, but as you said, Labronos has been a great signing for them. Umanga has been a good signing for them as well, to be fair. So it is quite disappointing. I won't lie. And like, just on their page now, like, we highlighted this game a few weeks ago with Ben, but like, that away game to Edinburgh is now crucial for both teams. I think whoever loses that game, they're almost going to be saying goodbye to their top 8 chances, realistically, because it's going to be really tough. Benton still have to go to South Africa as well. They're one of the poorest teams in South Africa in the last couple of years. So yeah, I think for all the talk and as much as we all want to see Benetton do well, it's starting to look like it could be a lost season for them, unfortunately, if they don't like, looking at their next couple of games, I think they might need 4 straight wins before we can properly say they're back in the hunt.
They've got a tough Champions Cup pool as well.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I feel like if they had their two, I feel like if their fixtures were reversed, I feel like it might be easier. It's one of those where you play like your tougher games at home and you're not likely to win them anyway, that kind of. But yeah, they might be as well off packing it in, but then someone on the Times or the Telegraph be giving out about the Italians not caring about the great competition that they also don't care about. I'm in one of those moods. It's okay.
It's okay. We understand. Let's quickly talk about Stormers and Glasgow then.
I didn't see much of this. Can I just start with Stellenbosch and just there we go.
Yeah.
It's just.
So, Hugh, do you want to tell the listeners just how excited about Stellenbosch you got?
So I was very looking forward to this game because I thought there was a good bit of hype around Stellenbosch. I remember the Scarlets game when we played there last year. It was more fun to look at the scenery than it was to look at the game, I'll be honest, because we got absolutely hockeyed. But I was looking forward to this. It was the early kickoff. I thought there was some good intrigue. I think Glasgow are great to watch. And I think there's a very interesting, shall we say, story developing around the Stormers. So I was looking forward to this. But they had like Manny Lebok back and stuff like that. I was excited. It was a fantastic crowd turned out and like the most beautiful backdrop to any rugby ground that I've seen. If anybody can think of a better one, don't say St. Helens. Then let us know in the comments below. So I did jump on Rightmove, I'll be honest, and have a bit of a look around to see what the real estate is like down in Stellenbosch. People were telling me, it's the wine region. I'm like, oh, really? So go and have a look, a bit of a tap through, and a 4-bedroom mansion with a pool in the wine region of Cape Town, down the road from Stellenbosch, 300k. You're getting a 2 up, 2 down in the English Midlands for that. Ask me how I know. So.
But the whole of that game on Saturday was taken up with you and Alan, with Alan explaining the how you get round some of the estate agent and legal stuff with buying a house.
You buy it and you lease it back and you visit it once a year and blah blah blah. That kind of thing. And
I'm like, boys, there's a game on. We're actually playing rugby in a lovely part of the world, but Yeah, Alan was giving you the whole, well, if you go another 50 kilometers up the road, it'll probably drop by another. You'll get a decent 4-bed house for 50K up there. And I'm like, it was like watching a slow motion Holmes under the hammer. It was weird.
It's important to note that all the best rugby podcasts don't really talk about rugby. And I'm delighted that we have reached that stage after
We got
six
to that
UFC
level.
rounds.
Look, the Venn diagram between rugby fans and people interested in real estate is very,
Yeah.
very close to being a circle.
Was
But I
so
did
right.
actually watch the game and quite enjoyed it. Everything that I said about the Stormers is coming true. I have never been more right in my life. The
You just love it when you say that, don't you?
John Dobson, give the ball to Warwick Gallant and cross your fingers is not a plan. The people were having a go at Manny Lebok after this game. The reason that Manny Lebok made so many mistakes in this game is the whole plan is Manny, Jesus Christ, will you do something for us here? And that's why he's like stepping one man, gassing another man, trying to chip over another man, is because there's no other plan. Alan summed it up perfectly a few weeks ago, last time I was on, because the stat is that the Stormers have got the most scrum penalties won in the league this season. But once they've won a scrum penalty, then what? Are they taking the shot to the goals? Who's kicking the goals? Are they going to the corner? If they go to the corner, are they driving them all, or are they playing off the top? What are they doing? There's no plan. If you look at where their try came from, it was Manny Lebok to Warwick Gallant to Damien Willemse. There's the Stormers' plan: is get the ball in the hand of the good players and hopefully they'll do something. The first half was so loose, and to be fair, Glasgow kind of stooped to the Stormers' level in the first half, and then in the second half they kind of went, let's just play like the really good team that we are, and then they did, and then they won easily. They also had a try disallowed of Sione Tuipulotu absolutely just smashing through their entire team like they weren't there. So just John Dobson is very much on fraud watch. I've had him on fraud watch all season and even some of last season. I think everybody else is catching up to me now. Whereas um, Glasgow were a really, really, really good rugby team. I think they've managed to win they were top of the league for most of last season and stayed under the radar. Now they've won the league, they're the defending champions, and they're still kind of under the radar. But their attack, I think, is better than it was last season. They kind of, like I said in the first half, got a bit silly, and it was a bit of a silly game for the first 40 minutes, but they came back into it. But the Stormers, final stat on the Stormers, most offloads in the league, fewest meters gained. I know which I'd rather have. And now the injuries that they've got, I can say no more.
So there's 2 points to take from that. That I think Glasgow were top of nearly all of the team stats. They're the most defenders beaten, most yards.
Points scored first, offloads
everything.
fourth, defenders beaten first, try scored first, meters gained first, clean breaks first.
Yeah.
Everything.
So they are on fire. And then the second,
Glasgow are a team to watch now.
Yeah. And it was entertaining. No,
Wi-Fi issues, but like they're a team to watch. Like you look at, they're going to play at Hampden in Christmas, which is going to be really cool. I look forward to seeing that one if I can at all. They have Connacht at home before the Six Nations. I feel like that's going to be a game that is going to excite people. As Huws has said, their attack is now much better than it was. I think the one thing about last year was they were kind of penalty, corner, maul, try kind of a team. They just kind of went down the field in stages. But like they also have Munster and Lions at home on back-to-back weekends, which already feels exciting. But does anyone know who they play in round 18? And this is where it gets really fun. They've got Leinster in Dublin.
Ooh.
Round 18. Yeah.
That's a big game.
I would be like, I do not like Glasgow. And Leinster exist. And I would be considering going to this one because for me, they look like the two best teams in the league right now. And I think they're the only two teams who look like they have their shit together after 6 rounds, if I'm being brutally honest. Because I said already, I did a thread over on Twitter for anyone who's still on there. And I said the provinces should be disappointed with their start. I don't think as a collective they have been good enough. I think Leinster have been good in fits and spurts, but they only had to be. That's fine. It's not really a criticism. It's more of just an observation when it comes to Leinster. And I said that the rest of the provinces wouldn't be too happy. But honestly, like Leinster 24 points out 20, or sorry, 29 points out 30. Don't think they're going to be jumping over the moon. I don't think Glasgow are going to be jumping over the moon either, because they've lost 2 games, and 2 games they really should have won. Like, if you told me that Leinster and Glasgow were both 6 from 6 to start the season, and I just watched the games and didn't know what the scoreline was, I'd actually probably believe you, because they probably should have beaten the Sharks. In hindsight, I know there was kind of garbage time scores, but it just shows that the Sharks are so up and down that they're very beatable, and they should have beaten Ulster. So yeah, like it's too early to kind of do the yearly pod where you're like, right, what was everyone's predictions? Right, what ones are we changing? But I think that's the one I might be considering changing. I think it could be Glasgow Leinster final as of now, because look, we're a third of the way through the season and they look like the two teams to beat.
Okay. Well, the second bit I was going to take from what Hugh said just now was at the end of every. I go back through the pods and I try and find some interesting clips, and then I take them out. So I'm going to clip Hugh saying, "I've never been more right," and everyone's catching up to me. And I'm just going to loop those together for like about a minute and just put it out there and just go, this is what we've got to deal with every week.
I've got the receipts. I've got the receipts.
The problem
If
is,
he
he's
really wants,
right.
there's a receipt probably of him saying it to me, where I'm like, no, I like the Stormers, and he's like, you're wrong.
I like the Stormers as well. This is why the reason I know so much about the Stormers and I've gone in such depth about them is because I like them. And my anger with them comes from a place of wanting them to be good. And I think they're one of the landmark clubs in all of world rugby. And to see them fraud their way through URC games pisses me off.
Okay, let's move on to the last game of the week then, which was Ospreys Edinburgh. Now I'll give you a little heads up on this. Okay, so I put Ospreys Edinburgh as my game of the week because I've had everybody else, or all the other Welsh regions, as game of the week. So this was the last opportunity to put Ospreys there. So I thought, right, okay, Ospreys game of the week. And then, do me a favour, you talk about Ospreys for a couple of minutes, mate, while I cough.
Right. Well, this is tricky because I didn't watch the game. I've been planning to watch the game. I've been thinking of giving it a hate watch. But I've been messaged by two people, one being Lee and one being Harley, who both said, for Christ's sake, don't watch this game. Um, I checked the score sheet and I saw that two of the three Ospreys tries were scored by hookers and the other one was scored by a prop. And I thought, yeah, that checks out. That's that's definitely what happened. And yeah,
Yeah.
I've just heard that it was turgid. And I don't know if we talked about who's on Fraud Watch. I don't know what list Edinburgh are even on at this point. Like Edinburgh fans are tuning in to watch their team already angry. They're like, right, I'm about to watch Edinburgh, apparently. Let's see how this goes. Duan van der Merwe has got no friends on that side of Scotland anymore. They are all quite happy to wave him off to La Rochelle and say, see you later, Duhan. Thanks for nothing. And Ospreys obviously just went back to anyone with a number higher than 10 on their back. You might as well eat a sandwich on this pitch because you are not getting the ball.
Well, that was my prediction for that game last week. That I said there's no point having the wingers on the pitch, and I was right. And I don't blame the Ospreys for playing that game. I really don't. But genuinely, what happened during that game was my wife took my daughter out and said, "Right, we're going out. You can watch the rugby." But do me a favour, just run a Hoover over while you're watching the first bit. Do a couple of odd jobs and all. So I did a couple of odd jobs, sat down with a cup of tea, and then fell asleep because that's how exciting that game was. I genuinely fell asleep for about 15 minutes of the second half. It was just, they were balls being dropped. It felt like every time the Ospreys made 10 meters, they went, well done, congratulations, let's kick the ball. And it never really felt like it got going up until about 81 minutes. And it was like somebody saw the clock was red and they went, oh, crap. We've got 3 crap tries. Tries a try, 5 points, that doesn't matter. No matter how it goes over the
Sorry, if you
line.
hear me laughing, I've just looked up the Ospreys attacking stats for this season so far.
Yeah. But it wasn't until 81 minutes. There were a couple of plays in each half. I think it was right at the end of the first half and then right at the start of the second half where the Ospreys just kind of went, oh, do a ball. Oh, okay. If I'll give it to you, and maybe you give it to the guy outside you, and there's a guy way over the other side. Let's see if we can. I don't know who he is, but let's see if we can get the ball to him. And then, oh, that's good. Well, let's see if we can get the ball back this side. It never felt like they really went forward when they did move the ball. So, don't get me wrong. We were in a similar position last year, Scarlet, and I know as soon as you say, "Oh, I'm a Scarlet," and I was reviewing the Ospreys game, I'm gonna get a whole load of that. I genuinely tried to watch that game with open eyes and all that kind of stuff, but it was poor. But saying that, when we were in that situation last year, I think I went on about 4 or 5 pods on the bounce. I went, I don't care how poor the game is. If we win 3-0 with a dodgy penalty on 79 minutes, I don't care. I just want a victory on the board. And that's what the Ospreys went back to. They went back to what they know best, which is boring rugby. They play boring rugby really, really well. And for the rest of us, that's a bit of a contradiction because rugby is meant to be exciting, enjoyable. For them, it needs to be, getting 12, 13 men into a driving maul and slowly walking it over from 5 meters and taking 35 seconds to walk 5 meters with 12 of you hanging onto the ball. That's exciting. I mean, yeah, maybe it is, but it doesn't float the boat for me. Everybody's got their own type of music that they like. I don't particularly like heavy hard rock music. I don't particularly like the crap that my daughter listens to. But there are different people that like different things. And there are a bunch of people that enjoy just watching driving mauls as a way of scoring a try. I'm not one of them. But
if I may give some legitimate analysis of the Ospreys. Obviously, I haven't seen this game because I've been warned off it by my friends. But the the thing that the Ospreys built their game around last season was obviously the scrum and the ability to win scrum penalties. They've only won 5 scrum penalties this season. The Scarlets have won 10. So that tells you just how they've lacked that way of progressing down the pitch this season. Is then they're not able to do that. And they've still got the front row of Gareth Thomas, Dewey Lake, and Tom Botha is still there. So it's pretty much the same players. I know Nicky Smith is the one that's been missing, but Thomas is still Wales' first choice loosehead. The other thing is about the passing. The thing that whenever you say that the Ospreys are boring, they always get back the forwards pass the ball more than any other team, and it's like, well, yes, but if you look at the movement and the meters that they're making, I think the URC stat was something like they make the fewest meters per phase of possession in the league. And if you look at the movements that Opta did last season, is that the Ospreys go wide the least. So if they're doing loads and loads of passes, but they're not moving very wide, what that's telling me is that there's loads of passes, just pot passes along the line, but the point of attack isn't changing at all. Like last season, it was get the ball to George North, but they would take 4 passes to get the ball to George North, and he'd just be stood there waiting. He'd just be stood there waiting for it, and by the time he's got it, the defense is on top of him. And it's the same with what is still happening. Is it's taking them so many passes to get to the player who they want to carry the ball that by the time it's got to them, the defender's in their face and they're going from a standing start. So it would be better to have less passes, but fling the passes longer or have some deception, in the back line, something like that. It's the question, and I've heard you say it, Lee, is it's just not enough anymore. And like the fact that they won this game, I think, is as much of a comment about Edinburgh, and Edinburgh fans are not happy. I've run a poll on my YouTube channel that says which we've seen one coach already leave mid-season in the URC. Which coach do you think might be the next? And Sean Everett is currently leading that. Yeah.
But I think the argument that people throw back is, would you rather win or would you rather have entertainment rugby? My argument on that is you need to have both. And when you've got the kind of crowds that you look at the size of Swansea, look how many people are in Swansea. We know that they're quite happy to go and watch a game of rugby and then ask, why aren't they? And if you want to do I know what Toby Booth is doing when he tells people this is entertaining rugby. Yeah, I know how he's trying to control the narrative. I know how he's trying to put something into people's heads that goes, yeah, actually, and then they go out and they say, yeah, this is entertaining rugby. Come on, let's go and watch some entertaining rugby. See that? Yeah, that's entertaining rugby. The problem with that is you've got a whole lot of other sides going, no, this is entertaining rugby. And when people see that entertaining rugby, they actually turn around and go, okay, yeah, I quite like that. And if you go, even if you go back as far as Neath in the 80s did not play a wide, expansive, exciting game. They played a hard, brutal, hard-hitting, upfront game. But it was entertaining because they played it really, really well. And they made line breaks, and it was break after break after break. And then once the forwards had broken the line 3 or 4 times, they'd pop it to one of the fast boys, and he'd fanny around under the posts. So if the Ospreys are going to do anything, they need to find a way of playing entertaining rugby. And maybe that is why Mark Jones is there. Mark Jones has got that reputation that, the ball will get thrown around with Mark Jones. I'm still not expecting it to change mid-season. I'm still expecting Toby Booth to go right to the end of the season. And I fully expect them to turn in another 3 or 4.
And we're heading into Osprey season now, so maybe not quite yet, but once we get to December and January, if you look back in the annals, they always have a purple patch in December and January because the weather turns crap and it goes towards their style of rugby, and they do still have the best pack in Wales, and they will start getting some results in the next block.
And it's always in Europe. They'll always turn a big name over in Europe.
Yeah.
Anyway. So the game wasn't great, but there's a lot of work for Ospreys to do. But at least they've got a win on the board, and they can be grateful for that. Okay, let's quickly run through the other, and I mean quickly, because we did 2 hours last week. I'm not doing 2 hours this week. So Scarlet Zebra, well done. I thought we did fantastic.
Won, hooray!
We won. Right, next, Sharks Munster, Galen.
Oh, to drop another F-bomb. We didn't win. Look, the Sharks in the first 20 minutes were brilliant. They were absolutely brilliant. Like, I have to give them credit for that. There's certain times where you see a Khaleesi just doing something, you're like, oh no, he's on it. And the first half
playing
was
number
one
8
of those,
in this game, unusual.
He was playing number 8, but he still kind of played as his normal, like, edge forward kind of, power flanker role.
I'm really struck from a stats nerd point of view. I really struggle with Khaleesi, not because I dislike him in any way, just to get that out there before
that's not
the
possible.
police
I
come.
don't think, to be honest.
But his stats are never amazing. If you try and say you could never do a stats drop for Sia Khaleesi, especially
he just
not
does a bit of everything, doesn't he?
Especially not at Springbok level. But to say that he does nothing is insane. Yeah. But you can never quantify it.
It's like, I think it's that he does a bit of everything and then plays like 60 minutes, so his numbers are never like, that 80-minute tackling or 80-minute carrying or whatever. But he was good. Even Etzebeth was just like, I hate playing against Eben Etzebeth. Like, okay, I don't play against Eben Etzebeth. The man would actually devour me in one fell swoop.
Craig Casey started a fight with him, did you see?
Yeah, that was actually hilarious, to be honest. And the only person who put an actual shot at Eben Etzebeth in this game was Billy Burns. Which might be a bigger question about Munster's pack. But look, we've talked enough about Munster. May as well talk about the Sharks. They're really good. I think it was Williams Hendricksa half-pack pairing. I
Yeah,
can't remember what the start.
Yeah,
I think
that's
that was
right.
the starting pairing. They were excellent. Like they have games where it's just I don't want to be here type
Grant
thing.
Williams is South Africa's best scrum half, in my opinion.
He is at the moment anyway. Yeah, he's in great form. Thought Andre Esterhuizen again really impactful. He's just such a physical.
I was about to message into the group. Andreas Eyerson hasn't done a damn thing in this game, and then he scored a try.
Yeah, but he's just. I don't think it's that like he will do. He will have a load of big moments. I think there's an element of well, can't give him the inside because he'll be gone. Can't give him the outside because he'll push me off away onto the inside. He's a very tough player to defend. Were Munster good? No, but I think look, you look at the Munster bench that was on the field. You know, like Jimmer Barron. You can okay, that's one you can leave aside. Kieran Ryan has less than 10 Munster games. Ronan Fox on his debut, who actually, to give him credit, the man got munched up in the scrum, but made a few really big carries, one really big latch before the Tyg Burn try, and made a really good cover tackle. Well, it wasn't really a cover tackle, but a really good tackle out in the wide exchanges. So I was happy with how he went. Finney Wycherley did all right. Ethan Coughlin again, only really, really young, but played well. And I think that's the team of Munster's season so far is the guys who you're expecting to kind of carry things when there's injuries. You know, the guys of their late 20s, early 30s have not been the ones. It's been the likes of Ruan Quinn. It has been, and granted there's exceptions to that rule, but it's like been the likes of Ruan Quinn, for example. It has been Tom Ahern, who had a really good game the other day. These guys have been the ones who stepped up. And a word for Tom Farrell as well. Like, I think if we're naming like a team of the first block, I think he's probably there for most teams. Like, he has been one of the best signings. He's been so good. Leads the league in a lot of stats. It does help when you've got games like this one that are just statistical overdrive. But he's been really, really good signing for Munster. And look, to go back to it, there's not a lot of positives from this week. It's 3 wins in the spit or 3 losses on the bounce. Obviously the Graham Rowntree news, but Sharks were good, and I think it's that perfect look at the Sharks where you look at them and like, oh yeah, when they got all their box, they're really good, but they could turn around in 3 weeks' time and not want to be there.
The Sharks are a bit of a hiding to nothing because if you look at the stats, they say that the Sharks played the best of anybody this weekend. But when you've got a squad like that, anything less than that is unacceptable, really. That squad should be hanging with Toulouse and Leinster at the very top table of Europe. It's an unbelievable squad. The bench is unbelievable. It's like you couldn't wish for anything better. So when they're dusting teams, when they're performing incredibly, you kind of go, well, this is what you should be doing, and anything less than this is a failure. So I will say that Jordan Hendricks, I think, has been their best player so far this season. I've been really, really impressed with him, and I think he's deserved his Springbok call up. Other than that, it's world players who we know are world class performing at a good level. So it's not really anything to get excited about. Apart from if you're the Sharks social media admin this week, in which case he got very, very excited and started just tweeting that he was champions to the point where AI started to believe that this was actually the URC final that got played and that the Sharks were actually the champions. So
Yeah,
incredibly good players are good is the headline from this game.
Okay. Moving quickly to Connacht Dragons.
I did see this one again. I managed to see multiple games this weekend, and I'm really proud of myself. Connacht were good, better than I thought they were, because Connacht have an ability where they'll get into games like these and they'll just not really perform. Because the Dragons, I think, to their credit, they defended really well. They had a couple of chances. I think if they take them, everything about the game changes. But no, I was impressed with Connacht. Bundy was really good. I think he made Opta's team of the week.
He's
this
playing
week,
a lot
but
of minutes, more than normal.
Yeah, way more than normal. It's really weird. But granted, I think Connacht have gone big on their starts of the season and tried to get as many points out of as possible and got those 3 wins, which were important. But no, Bundy was really good. Carl Ford played well. Matthew Devine off the bench, excellent. Like all the talk about Ben Murphy, Matthew Devine, first appearance of the season, comes on, assists a try with a great break, then scores a try of his own. I think he's the form 9 in Connacht, if I'm being entirely honest. I thought his Emerging Ireland tour was fantastic, like just unbelievable. The same question marks do remain about Connacht. We didn't see it in this game insofar as the Dragons didn't have a huge amount of ball. They weren't really able to do much with it. But the big thing that needs ironing out for Connacht is just the fact that they need to sort out their defense, because we said it last week, they were conceding way too many points up until this game. I'll hold. I'm not going to criticize them this week because they did do it, but it was the Dragons. So the asterisk still remains. But still, 5 points at home, 3 wins from their opening six. I think they'd be pretty happy. I think they'd have liked to have won one of those 3 Interpros, is the only thing, because that's the thing about being in the Irish Shield. Like, if you're only getting 2 from 4 in the Interpros, you don't have a lot of losses left in the rest of the season, kind of thing. And they obviously have to go to South Africa yet. They have to play. I mentioned the likes of Glasgow in January. Like, Connacht's next 5 games are brutal. They've got the Bulls, they got 2 Interbros, and they got Glasgow. And I think it's Benetton after that. I'm not 100% sure. Like, that's a tough slate in their next couple. Bulls at home, granted, and Bulls probably without some box, but still, like, it's a bad matchup for Connacht. So a good win, but I won't make up my mind on them just yet.
From a Dragons point of view, it was quite disappointing that they had enough possession to do something with it, and it took until the 70th minute to actually cross the line. So for all the improvements that have been made so far this year, and don't get me wrong, Dragons have improved. You know, the even on that game against Connacht, they showed signs of where they've improved, but they need to boost the squad, particularly in the front row. They need a good couple of heifers in the front row that are going to just provide the platform for everyone else to stand on, because at the minute there's no great platform there, and it's hard work. They've got a great back row. They've got a very dynamic second row. I think they've still got questions around 9 and 10. I think Rodri is playing out of his skin, but you take him out of the picture and it's not quite the same. 10 just isn't working, no matter who they put there and no matter who they put with him. Centres are actually having a really, really good year. Some of the boys in the centre, they're big boys. They're really, really big boys, and both have crazy hair. That's a lethal centre combination. You got quick boys on the. I think if they nail it down, it will turn around really, really quickly. I can see it happening, but I think Doug Flanagan is one of those people who is maybe sitting there, hoping that something happens really quickly. He's a really nice guy, Dave Flanagan. He's got a lot of time for supporters. He's absolutely loved by everyone at the Dragons, but they still just need that win. And maybe he does need to find a more aggressive side to his personality. Apparently that is one of the things that Dwayne Peel has kind of done, is developed a harder side to the way you talk to people and go, this is it. This is a winning game. We need to win this game, and we're going to win this game this way. So maybe Dave Flanagan does need to develop a bit more of a less pleasant side to him that then comes out in the players on the pitch, because they've got the team. I'd say apart from front row and 9 and 10, well, not even 9 and 10, half of 9, they need a better backup to Rodri, and then 10 is where it all falls down. So, yeah, I don't think the Dragons will be that disappointed by that game on the weekend, but everyone's got a tough couple of fixtures coming up, and they're no exceptions, and they need some wins. Anyway, last game will be Cardiff Ulster.
So I was messaging with Harley during this game, and for reasons, I could only watch the first half. This is true. I could only watch the first half, and Harley could only watch the second half. So Harley was messaging me saying, "Can you give me score updates?" And I was like, "And tell me what's going on." And I was messaging like, "Mate, I don't want to sit here just messaging you that your team is shit, But like the defense for two of the tries where Ulster kicking behind, Cardiff was hopeless. Like proper, like a lack of accountability in defense. Proper like, oh well, my job is to stand here, so someone else will have to tackle him because he's not where I'm standing. And there was scramble was non-existent. It shouldn't have been that bad losing a front rower because the comms at one point said, "Oh, they're really missing the extra defender." But I was like, they're getting cut up out wide. The hooker's not going to be stood there. All the people who they're running at aren't sin bins. They're on the pitch. So that. And then they were 19-0 down. And then I went out and Harley took over watching the game. And I was like, we're talking about the same game. Because it was complete turnaround. I saw the interview with Matt Sherratt afterwards, and he was like a bit embarrassed almost of like, yeah, that was weird, wasn't it? The I can't, like I said, I'll have to defer to Kaylin. I haven't really seen much of the second half, but by all accounts, it was a bit of
It was insane.
it was
Do
a
you
good
want to hear
turnaround.
something really funny?
Go
I
on.
kind of missed a good bit of the second half as well. I thought Ulster had the job done, and I kind of like talked about it accordingly. I was like, geez, Ulster
Didn't
are
they
a
have a
great team to
try
watch.
chalked off or something?
They did, I think.
Held up. Someone was held up.
Yeah, it was a weird one because I think these are the games that Ulster have historically lost, where they get into a good run of form. You think they're all right, think they've ironed things out. And typically, now some Ulster fans disagree with me on this. This is just my opinion. Typically, you would have, say, Rob Herring or Ian Henderson ruled out, and Ulster don't seem to perform as well. And I think the reason for that is just it's a leadership thing. They are almost a leadership vacuum in and of themselves, which is fair enough. Like they're unbelievable, unbelievable players, unbelievable leaders and captains for Ulster over the years. And they weren't there because Henderson went off injured, or possibly the HIA, actually, I think. Now that I think of it, but he went off, and Ulster, the wheels just tend to fall off. And like, I would give Aidan Morgan credit because I think Aidan Morgan's a good player, but like they are inexperienced, and these are the games Ulster just need to, I'm not going to say like get over the line, just do it, but like these are the games we need to see less of from Ulster, where they just kind of forget how to win matches.
3 points off the tee would have won them this game in the second half. Like anything.
Yeah, it was nothing, and it did feel like a bizarre way to run the game. It did feel like they were two completely separate halves that weren't connected by a conversation in the middle.
Yeah, but to shout out Callum Sheedy nailing all 3 kicks because I've given Callum Sheedy a bit of stick this season, and
No, really, have you?
And he nailed his kicks. So what can you say? Won his team the game.
Right, gents, we've reached the end of the first block. So what we will do is next week we'll have a look at where we are on the prediction league. We'll have a look through some of the international fixtures. The only international fixture we could really preview would be Scotland, Fiji. I don't feel right to do that without Ben here.
Munster, New Zealand? No? Okay, bye.
I think you've had enough Munster time this evening, young man. Yeah, it's been a pretty crazy week. It's been a fantastic kind of first block of games.
It's been a bad time to be a URC hater for this opening block.
With the amount must be spitting feathers.
The amount of international talent that we've seen, which we don't normally this early in the league, the amount of big stars that we've seen, and some of the really, really, really big attendances as well. It's been a stronger start to the league. And there was the news, wasn't it, that the URC put out that there was a big uplift compared to the first 4 rounds last season. Now, part of that is because it did clash with the World Cup, but up is up. So, yeah, definitely a stronger start this season than last season for me, definitely.
Well, we will review a whole load of stuff. The first block, we'll have a look at the second block. We'll do some international stuff. And we'll probably talk a load more about like non-rugby stuff. Ben wants to do an episode just on shirts. So Hugh, you can do that one, fella. You, Kaylin, Ben, go lock yourselves in a room. Go have whatever fun you have. Right, on that note, gents, it is time to call it a night. So have a good week and enjoy your rugby. All the best.
That was the United Rugby Rewind. Please rate, review and share us on socials if you can, and join us next week for more of the same. And until then, enjoy your rugby.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.